Hi, Deedi. Welcome to What's Your Next Podcast.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you here. I was thinking about it. We met in real life at a book
Mhm.
club, which is very fitting because you do have a book club, even though we have very different reading tastes. But that time we were just kind of before we were in this space, really gung ho. It's been like 6 or 7 years actually.
Yeah.
We lived in Jersey City, God bless the sixth borough. And now we have moved on from other places. But tell us what you've been up to. And yeah,
Oh my gosh, so much. 6 or 7 years it's been
yeah.
since we first met. So I now live in the Syracuse, New York area. I have a 13-month-old daughter, so life looks really different these days, but still lots of reading going on. I am primarily a bookstagrammer and on Substack. So I've been bookstagramming for like probably 8 or 9 years at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of people celebrate their like bookstagram anniversary. I like literally couldn't tell you what day. It was so long ago and like just something that I had built, like just decided to do one day. So I've been reviewing books on the internet for like almost 10 years now, which is really wild. And I've been on Substack. I moved like from a traditional newsletter that was like more like a MailChimp style over to Substack like a year and a half ago. And I've really been enjoying that space. I think it's just, I'm in my day job, I lead content marketing for a tech startup and I got my start in editorial. So long form is really my bread and butter. So I've really been having a lot of fun lately in the bookish spaces. There's no better part of the internet than the book internet.
Yes. Yes. I remember you were ready to go to 10K. Like that was like the big thing at the time before Reels, because then Reels came up and you were so good at them and you're like and doing like the virality. I was like, oh, this is someone who to follow with that. I was like, no, I'm not, I don't care about social. I think I'm happy with talking on the internet, you know.
Yeah, that was
But
the golden age of reels when like they first started and it was a lot easier to go viral with them. I will say these days I don't do quite as many. I'm starting to ramp up a little bit more, but I will say
yeah.
that often it's actually I just don't dry my hair that often these days with my
Yeah.
little one and whatnot. So I'm not as on camera as much, but yeah, man, those were the golden days of Instagram when you look back at it. That like
Yeah.
2019, 2020 era. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have this book club, which we're going to talk about it, but it's around that era. Like it was, you're reading, you like fantasy, you
Hmm.
like sci-fi and
Hmm.
lyric fiction,
Hmm.
and we know we've heard if you've been on Substack, like your evolution with it and evolution. But you started this book club way back when,
Yeah.
before we had online book clubs, book spaces. So talk to us about the Booker Prize book club.
Yeah. So the book club is called Booker of the Month, which when I first had the idea for the book club because I read the 2019 Booker Prize long list on my own. Basically, like one a month. There's 13. They call it the Booker dozen. That's the long list. It's 13. And so you just have to double up one time in order to get through all of them over the course of a year. And then you're ready for the next year's long list by the time you're done. And so I did that. I mean, I wasn't like alone. Like I had friends who also were interested in the Booker Prize and had read these books. So it wasn't like I didn't have anyone to talk to, but it was like a solo journey, this like one a month thing. And so then I was like, what if I saw if other people wanted to do it with me this next year when we get what was the 2020 long list? And obviously we were all in lockdown. So we were looking for a lot more ways to connect virtually. And then I thought of the name Booker of the Month. And I was like, well, now I have to do it. Now I have no choice. It must be done. And so that's how Booker of the Month was born. So we just wrapped up our 5th year, which is really just wild to think about. And we are starting our 6th year in August because we just got the 2025 long list as of this recording this past Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited. It's grown into such a great group. We have a really strong like group of regulars and not everybody comes every single time, but a lot of people come most of the time and it's all on Zoom, which is really great because we have people from all over the country and sometimes all over the world if the time zone differences don't stop them. But it's just been one of the best parts of my time on the bookish internet because everybody who has become a regular is just they're good people and they are so excited when like new friends join. It's like one of those clicks that's like easy to get into because they're like, you're here, hooray. And but also just like really smart people who love to like actually talk about the books. I know that's like kind of a meme going around about people who like join book clubs and don't read the book or don't like to talk about the book. They just like to drink wine or whatever. But we are like dog friendly, knitting friendly, Zoom friendly people who like to talk about literary fiction. And I think it's just been so great because the Booker Prize tends to longlist books that are a little bit more cerebral or like slower paced or experimental. Not always, not every single book is like not hard to read, but like a more challenging read. But it certainly, like a long list will include some challenging reads. And they just tend to be books that are really great for discussion and the kind of book that the more you talk about it, the more you get out of it. And so it has just been wonderful. And I'm really excited to go into the 6th year of Booker of the Month.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe. I remember when you started. I remember like it just. I remember the seed like it happened because it was prime lockdown. We were just like, what are we doing with our lives? Looking for community, and those bookish communities were lifesavers. Like I don't know about you, but those were what kept us going in the middle of the world's in crisis, and we're just now books are actually our people, and they're and the finding book people to keep us going. And so I love that the community has evolved and it has continued beyond lockdown and has grown in ways that you never thought it was possible. But at the same time, being like having a place to come home despite all the life changes that had happened.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your reading taste because I know like you do fantasy, and I think
Mhm.
that's another area where it's like that requires time, requires energy,
Yeah.
and your reading life has changed since the baby, since the 1 year old. So obviously, audiobooks are now important.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and how do you juggle these books that require more of it's not just a quick escape of romance, and not that romance is not literal, but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
the
You take a
quick.
little bit more of a closer read, a little bit more like mental energy sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I have 3 buckets of books that I like to read widely. I read a little bit of everything, but I tend to gravitate towards the 3 buckets, which are very like emotional literary fiction, sci-fi and fantasy, mostly fantasy and a little bit of sci-fi, I would say. I just like magic. And then like nonfiction, that's like hard to categorize, like the kind of stuff that's just like interesting to know, reported. And so before Bookstagram, like I thought I was like the only person in the world who liked those things that are all so different, like primarily. And then I just found people who are so much like me, which is like another wonderful thing about the bookish internet. But yeah, so that's my general reading taste. I have this year really been trying to pay a little bit more attention to the mix because I have found in recent years that like half of my favorites for the year tend to be in the sci-fi and fantasy area, but it only tends to be like a third of the books that I'm reading because I have a lot more relationships with like literary fiction imprints. I get a lot more of those books in the mail, and a lot of my friends are reading those books. So I just found that I was kind of being unintentionally pulled more towards that than like my taste necessarily wanted me to be. So I was kind of trying to like even that out, which I think I've done a good job of this year. Been more evenly split between the literary fiction and the fantasy, which has just been great. And I've also been trying to like really pick up the kinds of literary fiction that call to me the most. And
Like
if
a
we're being
Karen
honest,
Russell
like,
or
it's
something like
often
that.
the
And
ones
so that's
that
also,
have
I think,
speculative
really
elements.
because last
or,
year
like,
I read a lot of literary
realism
fiction that
elements,
I liked
or
well enough.
but it didn't have that much where I was like, I love this. And so I was like, that's like insidious. That kind of thing will sneak up on you because if you're not actually actively disliking what you're reading, it can be hard to understand that something needs a little bit of an adjustment. So I feel like I've been picking good books for myself this year. Anyway, so as you mentioned, in this era of having the little one, audiobooks are like hugely important for me because I just don't have as much time to like just sit on the couch with a physical book anymore. And the time that I do have to do that is after she goes to bed and like my brain is made of potatoes at that point. Well, like I'm
Yeah,
just
I don't have a little one, and my brain at the end of the day is, "What are you doing?
right, still
I
made
need
of
a bedtime story. I don't need you. I need no one to listen to do the thing that will do to a child. I need you to do it for me. I need Julie Whelan to read me a story. That's
Yeah,
what I want."
exactly. Exactly. And so it's funny that you should say that because what often allows me to get good reading in at that time is a tandem read where I'm listening to
Yeah.
the audiobook and reading the physical book in front of me. It really just like helps my brain stay engaged better. And I also just I love a tandem read. I've been doing it since before there was a word for it. Like when I used to tell
Yeah.
people that I would listen along with the physical copy, they would like, "What? That's crazy." And now there's a word for it. People know what I mean when I say
Yeah.
tandem reading, which is awesome. And I have always loved that because I just think that audiobook like performance and production is so good these days. And but there's especially in literary fiction, there's a lot to be gained by seeing the words on the page. And honestly, in the beginning of a fantasy novel too, because like you've got world building to get through, right? Like
Yeah,
I
you ever know those
or
how do you say those names?
yeah, yeah. But you can't like I usually will start I make sure to start a fantasy novel like tandem at least.
Yeah.
And then I usually can switch to audio like only if I need to, but I got to start on the page. So I do a lot of tandem reading and then just a lot of audio in general. I've also this year been doing a lot of crocheting and knitting because this is like a little bit of like I'll be short, but like my great grandmother passed away a couple of years ago and she used to make these really beautiful Christmas stockings with people's names on them for everyone like 6 degrees of separation. Like literally like she's my mother's grandmother and like my cousins on my dad's side like all have these stockings. So I decided that I've been a lifelong crocheter, so I decided that I was going to teach myself to knit so that I could take up the mantle and start making these Christmas stockings not only for my daughter but I've got a cousin who had a baby and she has a new husband and they all need them, right? So I've been doing that a lot this year too and that's been bringing me a lot of joy and that pairs really well with audiobooks as well. So audiobooks have been saving my life. Right now I'm reading one of the actual Booker Prize nominees that just got listed this week, but it's like almost 700 pages and it doesn't actually come out in the US until the end of September. And I don't have an audiobook because it's too soon. And I just am really struggling to get through it quickly, even though I'm enjoying the book because it's just really, I'm in a phase of my life where audiobooks are just so valuable to me.
Yes, audiobooks. And we both are lifelong library users. I know you're huge on the independent bookstores and breaking off with Amazon, which is if you're looking for a great Substack and break up with the Kindle ecosystem, Deedi has a great Substack about it and all they use for independent bookstores and Libra FM. But there's also libraries are another option. And a lot of the Amazon ecosystem has heard libraries because exclusive content. I
Yeah.
do have tips on how to game the Amazon system,
Yeah.
but libraries are like such a valuable tool for people who may not be able to afford it, but they still want to access the document, especially in the U.S.
Yeah.
Although right now in the U.S. they're getting defunded, and that's a long story. Hopefully in the future we can do, but libraries are another option to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're looking to break up with the Amazon ecosystem, I think DB is a great resource for that.
Thanks. Yeah, I use the library a lot. I mean, I try not to buy a book twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I bought it, like the book, like I try to get the audiobook from the library, Spotify Premium, or like one of those things. But
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes, I understand. So let's talk about Booker Prize. Let's do
Yeah.
2024 because you just
Yeah.
wrapped up the long list.
Yep.
What were some of your standout favorites from this past year's reading?
That's a great question. So 2024, if you are like at all plugged into the literary fiction genre, like there was like very few books that dominated the conversation in a way that felt really unique, right? Everything was about James and Martyr,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe a couple others. And so that was interesting because they also dominated a lot of the prizes. So there were some that a lot of people probably heard about and like maybe even read because they were nominated for the National Book Award or won the Pulitzer. But James was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. And I don't know anyone who's read that book who didn't think it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's like absolutely worth your time. You do not need to read Huck Finn first. I personally read the detailed Spark Notes summaries of all the chapters and then read James and got just as much out of it. So I loved that one. The book that won the Booker Prize last year was Orbital, which like also ended up on Obama's like list of favorite books. That was a lot of fun for me because it's set in space. It's not a sci-fi book, but it's like very existential and literary, but it's set in space, which was very fun. And it's also very short. I loved that one too. And then like My Friends by Hisham Matar, also a National Book Award nominee. So that one like got a lot of press last year. The Safe Keep by Yael Vanderwooden, which like won the Women's Prize and got a lot of that one. I think actually, if you're a romance reader listening to this, you should give that one a try.
Okay.
It's like sapphic and like surprisingly horny for a Booker Prize book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and was really good. And then what else? Headshot
Not
by
horny.
Rita Bullwinkle, which won the Pulitzer. And then one of my favorites was Held by Anne Michaels. One you have to you kind of have to read it twice to like really get it, but it's short. And what's interesting is that the Booker Prize has like publicly stated that they tell the judges that like we're looking for a book that like rewards rereading. And so when you like think about it in that lens, I think it like can make for an even more interesting experience of trying to predict what they'll choose and like what will win. So those were some standouts for me. Oh, and then Playground by Richard Powers. Richard Powers wrote The Overstory, obviously, which won the Pulitzer. But I actually think that Playground was my favorite of his books yet. So
Love this. And so now let's look at the long list that just came out. It's fresh out the press. We got Audition, which was mentioned at another podcast episode. Jason from Gates Reading talked about Audition. And I was like, I saw this actually on the PRH audio. And I had a friend listen to it. It was too smart for me. And he tried to explain it to me. And I was like, it sounds interesting, but I don't know if I'm going to get it. So, which is short. It's a short book.
It's short. Yes, it is. It's short. It's 200 pages. So it's not very long. I will say, if you like look on Goodreads, even Roxane Gay is, I don't think I know what happened, but that was really good.
Like, yes, that was like the basically it's a great book. But I don't know. I don't know what it's
and
too
and it's intentional. Right.
Yeah.
So she wrote it that way on purpose. So I just read this book last month actually, so it was really timely. This is the only one from the new long list that I have already read. I'm like I said, I'm halfway through another one. But is like in two parts, and basically the two parts are in conflict with one another. And so you have to decide how that can be possible. And so it's not meant to have an answer, which is going to make for an amazing book club discussion. And so Audition is our August pick. We're going to start there. So we meet on the last Monday of the month at 8:00 Eastern on Zoom. If anybody wants to join us for Audition, like truly, I don't think I can even name off the top of my head a book that is like demands to be discussed more than this book.
So it's good. I was like, I consider it. The synopsis looked good. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And there was like, like it's above your head, which actually might be an interesting time. I've actually shifted. My reading has shifted, by the way. I now read mysteries. I am a whole about all the mysteries, all the murders that happen on and off page and whatnot. Agatha Christie, the golden age of mysteries, and nonfiction. Actually, I've been listening to a lot of nostalgia, a lot of aughts, 90s on nonfiction. It's been like my comfort listen to
That's
now.
great.
Like, I'm too cynical for love. This is what the Trump administration has done. I don't want love right now. I just want to like murder.
Yeah, I feel like people go, they're like, I need that, or I like can't do that.
No, I want to kill the husband. I don't care. I don't care that you're gonna get married, have babies. We don't want babies right now. We want murder.
Oh my goodness.
So this is where I tweet. I actually listened to Murder on Sex Island by Joe Firestone, which is a mystery about a Love Island contestant where they murder one of the contestants, and it seems to be great. Stephen Colbert actually did a little bit like blurb it, and I was like, I wish this was a reality show. I was like, me too. I wish there was.
Fascinating.
So, but let's talk about 2025 list. Like, which ones are you like you're hopeful, or you're like this one's interesting, or this one's will bring some good conversation, or some of your predictions now that you know?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, Audition, I think a lot of people are really excited about that. I like to start with a book for book club that a lot of people have heard of that was probably already on your TBR, or maybe you already read it. It's a really accessible way in if you wanted to get started with us. And I try to do the same thing in September. So we're going to read Flashlight by Susan Choi, which like was also already on my TBR. I love Susan Choi. And I feel like Trust Exercise, which won not the Booker Prize, sorry. Trust Exercise won the National Book Award. And people either loved it or hated it. I was one of the people who loved it. But Susan Choi, like she deserves this. Like she's written a lot of books, and until Trust Exercise broke through in like the cultural awareness, like she was kind of like a writer's writer, and now I feel like she's like finally getting like what she deserves. But I've heard nothing but good things about Flashlight, and I was, like I said, I was planning to read that soon anyway, so I'm really excited about that one. And then the book I'm halfway through right now is called The Loneliness of Sonia and Sonny by Kieran Desai. And She won the Booker Prize before. Actually, we have 2 previous winners. David Salze, I think he won the Booker Prize before. He could have just been like shortlisted, but I think he did. His book Flesh is also on this year's list. But I'm reading The Loneliness of Sonia and Sonny, which is like almost 700 pages long. It is like a kind of a love story, but kind of a family saga about these 2 young people who were born in India and they like spend time living in the US, or I'm only halfway through, so I don't know if they end up living in the US. I couldn't tell you. Maybe they will. But their parents tried to like basically get them together in an arranged marriage. And so that like immediately turns them off to each other, but they're also kind of drawn together. So it's definitely not like a traditional love story so far. There's barely any interaction between them, and it's a lot about their families and like the lead up to this moment. But I'm really excited to see where it goes. I'm definitely enjoying it. And then yeah, those are probably the ones I'm most excited about. There are a couple that are not published in the US yet because the Booker Prize is like based in the UK. And so that is Sea Scraper and The Rest of Our Lives, but I'm sure they'll get picked up by a publisher and get like published. Usually that happens and they end up coming out in like February-ish. And then there are a couple that come out in September, like I mentioned. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people have really liked Endling by Maria Riva. Like I mentioned, Flesh by David Salze or Sale. I can't not say his name.
That's okay.
Sealay.
Okay.
And Universality by Natasha Brown. I think that one has been a little bit polarizing, so that'll probably be for a good discussion. So we only have July and September set right now for book club. I like to, like I mentioned, start with ones that feel like a little bit more buzzy. And then I wait for the shortlist announcement, which happens towards the end of September. And once we know what the shortlist is, I scheduled the shortlist for the next however many months. So hopefully we picked 2 books in the beginning that also get shortlisted. So we have only 4 more left because the shortlist is usually 6. But that gives us the best chance of having read the winner by the time the announcement is made in November about which book won. And then once we finish the shortlist, then we go and read the rest of the long list. So right now we have the first 2 months set, like I said, Audition and Flashlight. And then in September, once we have the shortlist, I will set the schedule for the entire rest of the year. But all of the meeting dates are already on my website. We just don't know exactly which book we're going to read yet.
Awesome. So this episode is going to go live in a couple of weeks. So right before an audition, we'll have enough time to read Audition and maybe reread Audition twice to see if you can
read it again. I just read it, but I really feel like it needs to be read twice. Actually, someone in the book club group chat was like, I think I'm going to read part 2 and then part 1, like as a reread. And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah. So we'll post it. So we'll post a list. If you're a literary fiction reader, if you want to just get into this, if you want to make this a project, a reading project that has community, this is a good place to get started. So Deedi, tell us where you can find you online.
Yep. So I'm Deedi Reads on Instagram. So my name is spelled Deedi. So that might trip you up. So Deedi Reads. And then Substack, deedireads.substack.com. And then like my website is just deedireads.com. But all of that is like obviously linked in my Instagram bio if you find me there. But yeah, come hang out because I love new friends. I'm an Enneagram 2. And like back in the days when it was like not awful to talk about Harry Potter, I used to introduce myself as a Hufflepuff, but obviously
it's okay.
We know how that goes.
Yeah.
I'm the people person, right? I love new friends. That's why I like started a book club out of my own personal passion project. And so come find me, come hang out. It's going to be great.
Deedi is a great friend. So it's like, just as someone who has known her for quite some time, she's a great person to talk to. She's a great friend. And not just that, like it's warm and caring in a sense and understands we may not have the same reading taste, but we respect each other and we support each other. And I think that's something that's valuable. So yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Deedi, for being on the show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider rate, review, or subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks.